All right, everybody. Welcome to You're Not the Audience. This is a weekly live show where I break down brands, products, and subcultures that truly stand out by not trying to appeal to everyone. I'm creative director Calvin, creative director at Parliament. Parliament, for those who don't know, we call ourselves a brand transformation agency that helps brands when they're facing big changes, and we do that through strategy, positioning, identity, messaging, all that good stuff. Um, Today is going to be a very fun episode. We're going to talk about something I love a lot. I love vices and drinks, and this is going to be a good one. So today we're going to be talking about beer brands, domestic beer brands, craft beer brands, all of that, everything in between. And I think it's going to be great. Structure of the episode. Uh, every week we do this. We start with just some light news from Parliament, any recent obsessions that I've been thinking about or folks in the studio have been thinking about. And then we'll kind of do a deep dive into beer, kind of some of the trends that have been happening in the beer industry. And really, this is going to end up being a stream that's my way of telling you why Rainier beer is the best regional beer in the whole country, and like how we helped them a little bit, just a little bit. So uh, that's going to be that's the real crux of this whole thing today. So we get to do a little bit of self-serving work of showing you some Rainier beer work that we've done. Um, I will say the folks at Rainier are going to be mad at me because I'm cracking open an athletic on screen today since it's lunchtime. So we'll talk about athletic uh, later in this, but I'm a big fan of the NA beers. I drink all kinds of stuff, but NA is nice. So, but we will definitely talk about athletic. They're doing some good things. So cheers, everybody. Okay, let's start with just some Parliament news. And some real fun news. We always try to do like kind of some kind of big event every quarter. This quarter is our Caddyshack Invitational, which is our golf tournament where we end up embarrassing ourselves on a golf course, and my team usually comes in last place. But so that's fun because then we just always end up designing swag for it. So I could actually show you. I started just collecting images for it this week as some inspiration. So this is just some boards I'm collecting from everything. I love this old vintage golf look. I don't know anything about golf, but it's fun to do it with friends. And so I started just collecting a ton of this old vintage stuff. I'm using Cosmos, which is a great app for collecting images, good for design stuff. If nobody knows Cosmos, that's the one. But I think that here's actually another obsession that's worth noting in this. You know, I feel like a lot of designers and brand folks spend a lot of times on things like Cosmos or Savvy or Pinterest or any of those things, but you kind of get like fed the same things. One of like my big pieces of advice is go digging on eBay for design inspiration, because there you can find all kinds of great classic stuff. That's where like a ton of this imagery comes from. It's all just digging on eBay for vintage golf gear. So that's where you get to find the stuff that kind of stood the test of time. So yeah, so Caddyshack Invitational, that's coming up next month for our employees and friends of Parliament. What's the other crazy? Oh, another obsession that has recently started for me in some free time at work. I started just making some little fonts. I feel like it's a stretch even calling them that because I'm just testing it out. But I started using this plugin for Illustrator called Font Self, and it just allows you to design all your letters inside Illustrator and immediately turn them into a font. The real typographers out there are going to be uh, really upset that I'm recommending Font Self because it seems like it's something that's kind of for little amateurs like me when it comes to type design. but very fun. In fact, I'll show you this. I just designed up a. This was my my font I did in, I don't know, an hour the other day, and it's just one single face. It really quickly. I've been obsessed with sci-fi stuff lately, so I wanted a little bit of a sci-fi look. And that actually, the other obsession I've been thinking about nonstop. Speaking of sci-fi things, and why I've been this is actually part of the reason I've been thinking about type so much lately, is I don't know if anybody knows this or has been following. I'm obsessed with a video game called Marathon. It's from the people who originally created Halo, they did Destiny, all of those types of games. But the graphic design, the world building, the whole identity is like some of the most distinct I've ever seen in the video game world, and it's like they nail every aspect of it. And so that's what actually drew me in. It's kind of a sweaty try-hard game, which I am not that kind of super intense hardcore gamer, but just this world is so good, and they just really hit this kind of like modern take on sci-fi that I love. The agency Kirpa Hosk did it. There's some big timers. They did great work for them, and it's just the craziest looking stuff. It's all this bright blue, bright green, and so they use incredible type throughout it. And this is actually part of the reason I've been wanting to obsessively make little sci-fi looking typefaces lately. So that's my hobby on the side right now. But I'm very excited with how this game's been going. So, hey, if anybody wants to play Marathon, it's free week. It's free to play, so you can join me. Oh, we're gonna talk about these guys in a second. So, oh, Nick says I've been vibe fonting. That is actually the most accurate way of describing it. I've been hardcore vibe fonting. I think that's probably the best way to say it, because the real typographers would be hating on me for calling it real type design. So, all right, before we get into talking about beer, anyone who's in chat, what's like? See, I'm actually. This is the funny thing: is for doing as much work as I've done in beer, I'm actually more of a whiskey or a wine guy, because I'm pretentious like that. But I love like a good, simple, clean beer. I used to like craft beers, like really weird ones. I've fallen out of love with that, and now I just like a good, simple lager. I like a lot of domestics, and so anyone in chat, what's some of your favorite beers you've been drinking lately? Anything that you go back to? Like, is any beer that you just kind of like, this is my go-to, this is always in my fridge, or something like that, or if just one you've been excited about? Hey, I know Nick in chat is I think he's our resident, he's our copywriter and creative director at Parliament, and he's more of the beer guy in the group. Oh, Nick, St. Pauli girl. Yes. I love that. Oh, Campfather. That's Nathan. Cold. Cold is my preferred style of beer. That's usually is my number one requirement. Cold. Especially if it's got cans that show you that it's cold. We might talk about some of that in a second too. All right. I think mine, I mean, I always have some kind of NA beer in the fridge. I often will have a whiskey and then followed by an NA beer. And I think the cool kids, our clients at Rainier, say that the youngins call that zebra striping. So I guess I've been zebra striping. Maybe that's kind of like vibe fonting. I don't know. Oh, Campfather. Takate's been hitting lately. Campfather, you know what you're talking about. Nathan, I love it. Yes. Takate for years was my go-to drink if I was going to a metal show, because they always had it it was like, you get it with a lime. It's always in a tall boy can, which is great when you're kind of standing stuck in a crowd at a concert. So I've drank a lot of Takates in my lifetime. So I don't have them on my list today, but Takate, another good, just like, you always know what you're gonna get. Good brand. Okay, let's start talking about it. So, Nick, hops are low-key chopped. I'm all about malt profiles these days. Yeah, hops are chopped. That's the stance. I mean, honestly, hops are chopped is maybe an actually insightful thought on where beer is at right now. So, okay, let's talk about the beer industry as a whole. Now, keep in mind, I'm not a hardcore expert in the industry or category as a whole, but I at least have some knowledge about how to approach them brand wise. So, beer in general, drinking in general, but especially beer, is in a pretty bad place from where it's been. Sales have been going down. A lot of brands are kind of sinking. I mean, I think if you follow beer, you've seen a lot of microbreweries closing. But it's kind of been interesting because it hasn't been bad for everyone. Uh, if you've really been paying attention, you're noticing that like a lot of the brands that are sinking right now are kind of brands that have those vague identities and have focused really hard on craft quality and been chasing flavor trends. Um, so we're talking about flavor trends. I mean, that was so big in craft brewing, where it was like you've got this IPA, you've got, and it ended in that world of like pastries and hazies and crazy things like that, where rather than digging into who they were as a brand and amplifying that, they started chasing these trends in search of novelty. So we'll end up talking a lot about novelty today and how that can actually be pretty damaging for your brand overall. Oh, Aaron, Freem Castle. Freem is great. I don't actually have them mentioned in here, but Freem is awesome. I don't know actually. I assume Freem sales wise is doing great because they are just super focused on their brand. They feel almost like a classic. Their identity, like they explore, they create things, but everything is so consistent from an aesthetic perspective that it always still feels like you're getting a Freem. They don't do wild, crazy stuff, and their beers taste great. I think they're getting pretty big these days. So, okay, some sales trends overall. This is what's been happening with beer since COVID, basically. COVID was a big drop off. Everyone drank too much during COVID and was like, maybe it's time we sober up a little bit. So year over year, beer sales have been kind of sinking down a few percent every year since COVID, 3, 4, 5%. And so a crazy stat is only a little over like 50% in the people in the US report that they drink right now, which I think is a record low. Um, which is also hilarious to me because I'm like, I know who my friends are, and I think 100% of my friends drink. So I don't. What's that say about me? But yeah, supposedly about only I think it was like 54% in last studies found that only 54% of people in the US are drinking. So, and what's we've also seen is that like craft beer especially and microbrews are like really feeling that pressure because they operate with pretty slim profits in those businesses. They don't have like the scale to kind of stretch. And so a few percent drop for them across the whole industry can be a pretty big killer. But so the thing that I think the thing to kind of come back to is that a lot of the beers that have been sinking have like they're doing good things. They're making great beers. But like I said, like they started chasing all these trends where they were doing these different flavors. Everyone's doing a seltzer, everyone's doing a like a canned cocktail, and but none of them feel like it's coming from them. It always just feels like they're chasing kind of like a little piece of that market share for where those things are going. Which as soon as you start doing that, you just start looking like everyone else and no one starts really seeing like what the distinction of your brand is and like why they should just become wholly invested in your brand as opposed to someone else's. So we're seeing some brands that are really bucking those trends though, and the ones that are kind of really resilient and growing right now have at least one or two of these traits that I've kind of noticed. And one is big occasion beers. These are beers like occasion beers are beers that you drink specific occasions. When you're doing sports, when you're doing outdoor stuff, things like that. other ones that just have like razor sharp identities where every product is very consistent. It's always being spoken from the same messaging. I mean, of course, that's good branding, but like that's actually rare, especially in the craft area, to be talking about like showing up and speaking from a very consistent perspective. Because craft brewery became like, look at all this different stuff we can do. So if you're focused in and really clear, you've got a good chance. The other ones are beers with really strong regional focuses. That's beers that focus on their history, their heritage, and specifically their geographic location. That's why I love Rainier beer, but we'll talk about a few of those. And then just last, kind of just ones that have like really strong heritage. And the heritage and regional stuff seems to mix in a lot, where they kind of play into this nostalgic trait, and it's not quite your dad's, your dad's or your granddad's beer, but they've found a way to, what did I say? I think last stream I talked. They found to a way to weaponize nostalgia by turning it into heritage. So they've done a great job of that. So let's talk about some of these. Let's jump into, and I think here's one thing I want to say up front about all of these is, I know we have a tendency, especially if you're of the, if you're a pretentious jerk like me, I think we have this tendency to be like, oh, I'm into like craft beers, I don't drink domestics, or like the real artists and master brewers and all those things are doing the craft stuff. And I think that is just like a thing we have to first get over immediately, because when you're talking about the people who are making the domestics, even like the Budweisers, people working at Coors, all of those things, those brewers are incredible, like absolute top of their field. Their drink has to taste the exact same year in, year out, and like that is an incredible accomplishment. So it's actually much it's, by comparison, it's quite a bit easier to make IPAs, things of that sort, and especially when you don't necessarily have to track them every single year like they need to be with this exact one. A lot of the like larger microbreweries are really good at doing that. But I think that's just one thing to be mindful of, is that like the people working at those giant American lager companies are doing incredible work. So let's talk occasion beers, special occasion beers. I mean, the one that is absolutely dominating this right now, and it's, which is funny, I just don't get, because it's not a brand for me, is good old Michelob. Michelob, I think, is maybe now the #1 beer in the US. It is massive. And they are a special occasion beer in a way where they have completely cornered the market for like active social drinkers who are health conscious. And so it really is an aspirational beer. And I think their tagline is it's only worth it if you enjoy it, which is just like so good, because it is that kind of thing. It's giving you permission to kind of like, okay, I'm health conscious, but you know what? I'm gonna like take time, enjoy this, and they're crazy huge now. And aesthetically, they show up the same everywhere. Even this one, I pulled up this one because this is like the official World Cup one they released. It still looks like Michelob. They aren't doing anything super crazy with it, and this is like their wheelhouse. If there's a brand that should show up for World Cup things, it is them. So they're looking great. The other one that is a really good special occasion beer that's something to learn from and has been the same forever, and I feel like people joke about it, but it's Busch Light. Like Busch Light is just so consistent, and they have completely, like, if you are into rural outdoor recreation, if you're hunting, if you're fishing, they have found a way to completely corner that market. And they can do absurd things like I don't know if anybody has seen there when they do the like bright hunter orange camo cans and things like that. Like, it's so good looking. And like they do stuff like this image here where you're just like, what the hell is going on here? It's covered in camo. They've got this like goofy cooler that has a scope and everything on it, like little spotter. I think it's just like they know their market and they just keep doubling down on that. And so kudos to them. Like, I feel like forever it was like everyone poking fun at Busch Light, and now it's kind of like they're kind of bucking this trend. They're doing great. Uh, the other one that I think is worth mentioning is as a good old special occasion beer is our athletic beer. I think this one is kind of tough because this is kind of the whole NA category in itself has become kind of a special occasion beer. So I'm really curious how this market changes over time. We had a really huge boom right after COVID with this. I mean, athletic has kind of dominated because of their consistency and just their whatever they're doing to get into the market everywhere is pretty impressive. Like you look at everything, it looks somewhere between a craft and a domestic a lot of the time, and it's just super consistent. Logo placement, everything on the can, you always know as soon as somebody's grabbing an athletic, and it's just that kind of like thing. They're really good at being like kind of. I mean, the name is athletic, so it's orienting you toward this more health conscious lifestyle, but it allows you to kind of join in and drink alongside others, like in social environments. So I think there's a lot of brands doing exciting work in the NA world, and so I'm excited to see where they all go. Okay, that's special occasion beers. One that let's talk about just like this is one I think is a super interesting example of just someone with a really razor sharp identity. And it's not a brand I would normally think of with this, but then especially in the craft space. And that is Voodoo Ranger IPA. Now I want to be clear here. Aesthetically, I struggle with this brand so much. You could probably not pick a brand that is more like diametrically opposed to my aesthetic, but they have done something so good with this, which I think a ton of other, especially craft. This is someplace. Ugh. Yes, I know. I feel the same way about Voodoo Ranger. I really struggle with them. Aaron, that's just an empty table. Something about Voodoo Ranger is they did something that all craft brewer, like most craft breweries, have screwed up. And most craft breweries try really hard to make each individual can look really different. Like this one tastes like this, so it needs to look like it's containing these flavor profiles. This one looks like this, it needs to look like this. These guys were smart. This goes back to our talk about fast food last week. And fast food brands were really good at creating mascots. And mascots end up being really powerful tools. And the Voodoo Ranger skeleton, they consistently put on every can. And it has taken over New Belgium's business. Like, they are Voodoo Ranger now. For better or for worse. So yeah, please in chat, drop all your thoughts on the design aesthetic of Voodoo Ranger. Because I really struggle with it, but it's been so impressive to see how much they leaned into that mascot and how consistent they've been with it. I mean, this stuff's absurd. It all looks like Mountain Dew cans to me, but I mean, good on them. They're great. And I think just like that kind of iconic mascot is really rare. And this is stuff, I mean, this is stuff that's come up in our own conversations internally. Years ago, we did the rebrand for Fremont Brewing, which we really like Fremont Brewing and the stuff they did. But that was one thing that we kind of like, that was a really important deciding point when we did work with Fremont Brewing, was Fremont Brewing is really known for having every can as a very unique illustration. And that was an immediate challenge we identified up front, was like, how do we create a really consistent can and packaging experience when that illustration changes on every single package? So I don't have any photos of Fremont pulled up right now, otherwise I'd show you. But we designed a really simple system where it's just the Fremont's always in the same spot, you're always seeing it, and then it lets the illustration like be a canvas that fills everything. So just interesting challenge that happened when you're trying to develop an identity that changes up a lot. Okay, let's talk about what now I think are some of my favorite aesthetics in beer. And that's all the kind of like strong regional beers, the ones who are doing great. Number one favorite, by far, just aesthetically, is Coors Banquet. It's in a stubby. They know what they're doing. Coors and Coors Light. I feel like we like to dog on Coors Light, but their whole brand is all about, like, if you want a cold drink and you're near the mountains, you're probably drinking a Coors. Like, they know that corner of their market. It's like, it really is about coldness, refreshing, like a beer for relaxing. And Banquet specifically is actually doing pretty well because it's like they're doubling down on this idea of like heritage, legacy. They've got a lot of history in like a way that other, like, they promote their history in a way that a lot of, I think, other domestics don't. And so they've been doing really well. Campfather in chat, this is the beer. These are the beers for you. They're cold. The other one I think that are on the more micro side that I love is Narragansett. So I don't know if everyone here on the West Coast has had Narragansett. It shows up around here occasionally. Narragansett, which is actually owned by Quaker City Mercantile, well, they're one of the owners, which is an agency. They're also the agency that, like a design agency. They also own Hendrick's Gin and things like that. But Narragansett has, they have been a little bit more exploratory. They do a lot of different flavors, but their whole vibe, their whole messaging, their whole aesthetic has been like cornering the market on like, we are the official beer of the Northeast, basically. So if you are hanging out near like a cute little coastal town in New England, this is the beer you're drinking. So everything is about that. It's about crabs, lobsters, hanging out. It's really, really good. Nick says, I drink whenever Sam Elliott tells me to drink. As you should. Do whatever Sam Elliott says. His dulcet tones. And then, okay, another good region. So this is like, technically, I mean, Narragansett is technically a micro. I think they're in like 15th or 20th biggest brewery in the country at that size. And the next one I love, also owned by Pabst, who also owns Rainier Beer, so we'll talk about them some, is Lone Star. Lone Star is great. If you're in Texas, you're going to drink Lone Star. They are, as it says here, the national beer of Texas. If they ever stepped away from that, they would be catastrophic. Like, if they tried going broader and it wasn't all about Texas and the greatness of Texas, they would just fall apart. And so they know really well. They kind of did a bit of a rebrand where they really doubled down on that. I think around the time that we did Rainier Beer as well, when Pabst was doing a kind of big reimagining of a lot of their portfolio of regional beers. So I think Lone Star is great. I even begged people at Pabst to let us work on Lone Star. They're like, nah, you're in Oregon, not in Texas. So I tried my best, though. And then last, I think this is also like that group that really relates to this is a lot of the heritage beers. I mean, there's a ton of brands that do this well. I mean, I already talked about Coors, and Coors Banquet especially are really good at nailing that heritage vibe. And but the one I really want to talk about, of course, is good old Rainier Beer. So Rainier, for anyone who doesn't know, we started working with Pabst, the owner of Rainier Beer, years ago, when they originally came to us to work on some work for Olympia Beer, RIP. Maybe it's coming back someday, I don't know. So for anyone who remembers Olympia Beer. But we started working with Rainier years ago, and this was a big change-up time for Pabst. So to kind of step back, like I said, Pabst owns Rainier. For anyone who doesn't know, Rainier is just classic American lager. Think your Budweisers, your things like that, but only up here in the Pacific Northwest. And Rainier has existed for a really long time, since 1878, as you can see there on the can. And while it has been around for, well over a century, PBR really dominated the American lager market, especially in the Pacific Northwest, for so long. If you were a dirtbag like me and at metal shows for the last 20, 30 years, you were drinking PBR, or in my case, a Tecate. But you were drinking PBR at these things. It was just universal. They were everywhere. Something happened. PBR kind of reached saturation, and I think PBR sales kind of dipped. And Pabst did a really smart thing as stewards of their brands. They started investing in regional beers a lot during that time because they're like, we know, like this is the cycle that beers go through. PBR might take a little bit of dip. Let's heavily invest in things like Olympia, Rainier. They invested like others like Stag and stuff like that across the country. And something happened with Rainier where it just has exploded now. Like Rainier is doing better than it ever has. Because they invested in it heavily. They got kind of the right people in there finally, and just really, really understood the magic that makes Rainier special. So let's kind of talk about, I think, what they didn't do, which I think is really important. So I'll just switch back here for a second. So like, what didn't Rainier do that I think was really important? They even tested some of this stuff, and they were like, no, it's not for us. So what didn't Rainier do? They didn't end up doubling down on like super crazy flavor extensions. They didn't do anything really nuts. They even tested the market to be like, is there desire for this like unique kind of takes on Rainier? Just it wasn't core to their brand. So they kept innovation overall to a minimum because they knew it would kind of screw up the core brand. They didn't do any major trend chasing. Rainier did try a seltzer, and I think that kind of taught them a lot about where their like hardcore fans really were. And so I think that just was like, stop tracing trends, just become who we are supposed to be. And the other thing, like, I haven't talked about this, but this is actually a perfect moment. They didn't do any of the like premium craft, low stakes bullshit messaging. A lot of craft brands and domestic brands really focus in on this idea of craft and quality, and like, we do this to this, and you just can't make yourself distinct at that level because any of your competitors can say the same thing. The best way to test these kinds of low stakes things, if you're saying, well, we're premium craft and quality, is like, does that mean that anyone else out there is saying like, we're no craft, we're low craft, like we're low quality? Nobody's saying that. So that means it's kind of just a like throwaway promise to your customers, and that's not how you actually are going to create really strong advocates. Like, craft is exciting for a very, very small niche of people, but even to get the people who are really passionate about like the craft and how you're making your drinks, it requires a different brand messaging to really pull those people in, make them fans, and then get them excited about your quality and craft. And the other thing Rainier didn't do was they didn't pivot into like hardcore lifestyle wellness. There was like quite a few brands. I mean, even this, I'm drinking an Athletic right here, and Michelob, even those bigger brands, like pivoted into the kind of a little bit more of this like lifestyle active thing. And there were also brands, beer brands, that were doing crazy things like adding electrolytes into their drinks and stuff like this, and trying to find, is there a function? They're trying to turn their beers into functional products as opposed to like enjoyable consumer goods. And they locked that down. They even did some testing internally. I know this. I don't know if I'm supposed to share this, but they did. And they're just like, nope, not us. And I really commend them for that. Like, that's great. Put the feelers out there as a brand, see if there's appetite for it, and shut it down if there's not. Okay. Let's talk about then how a brand like Rainier, and I'm not really talking about Rainier because I think they exemplify a lot of these brands. I just have specific insight into them. And I think I guess everyone in chat, trying to think of where everyone's located that I know of in chat. Has everyone in chat had a Rainier before? I think so. I'm just going to assume that everyone has had Rainier. Let's hope so. If not, we'll find a way. We'll talk to Sean and Mia, and we'll have at Rainier, and we'll have them send you some Rainier somehow if you're somewhere else. Okay, so let's talk about how Rainier is winning now, like how they're doing good. Yep, this is someplace that's Jared. This is only in the Pacific Northwest. Say, I hope Rainier takes over the world someday, but they're right now. They're really good at just like hitting it home. Cascadia. Oh, Nathan, you live here in Portland. You can go buy your own case. I see that. Probably send me a case. All right, we'll see what we can do. Okay. So what Rainier did first and foremost, this is important for so many brands to remember. Just ignore everyone else and be yourself. I feel like this is the cheesiest advice. This is like something your parents tell you when you're a kid. But dear God, is it been so important for so many breweries and beer brands to really remind themselves of this. Like, just ignore everyone else, be yourself, do the thing you're good at, and the people will follow. So Rainier just double down on intense regional pride. It's all about drinking mountain fresh Rainier beer. All of their lore and world building revolves around the idea that like this comes from the mountain, and there's even some joke writing that we've done around things where it's like the mountain is named after the beer, like, and the whole land of Rainier beer is Mount Rainier, and it is this special world worth exploring. The other one is I've got some glimpses of some stuff in here. The other thing that was like, they knew that they were like everyone else in the Northwest. This is just the Parliament case study on on Rainier. Really focus in on their irreverent outdoor culture. So they didn't really want to be like a good times bro beer. It was just about being like, I'm just a good regular Joe or Jill, and I like having fun outside, and I want to be part of that. So this is even like from the brand book in here. It's just about Rainier for life, which is always a fun classic line that's been on the can forever. And one of their brand attributes is irreverent. And the other thing that Rainier has done right is they know their heritage. The big red R is absolutely sacred. When we started working with them, that was like the one thing that we talked with them was about, just like, it has to be all about the big red R. It is iconic. There's even just tons of companies have ripped it off up in the Seattle area. You'll see like a dump truck company that uses the red R on the side of their trucks, just because it's like that omnipresent up there. And we're fine with that. That's great. Like, use it for your own thing, because all it does is further endorse our brand and how legitimate we are. And so that was like, when we worked with them, the big thing was just about like, make it all about the logo, the mountain in the logo. And that's why even on one side of the can, it's just the red R, because that's what everyone knows. And just don't screw that up, basically. So the other thing that we've talked about is that I think they're really good at doing, and why one of the reasons we've had a blast with them, is Rainier's really good at the world building side of things. Since they're irreverent, we might have some of their this is a bunch of real nerdy stuff in here. Oh, you can see the brand attributes for them that we worked on over here. Irreverent, outdoorsy, mythic, genuine. These are just like the filters that we use with a brand to just be like, does it pass the test of these? Like, this is, if it's not irreverent, if it's not mythic, if it's not outdoorsy, if it's not genuine, it's probably not Rainier. And so what that allowed us to do is then mythic, what the hell does that mean? It allows us to build this whole world around them, investing in a lot of work that they did in the 70s and 80s with a lot of classic commercials that they had. I don't know if you see them in here somewhere, but Rainier is known for having the wild Rainiers, which are like these animated cans, like that look like people legs with cans running around, or bottles. That's kind of like a a creature that lives in Mount Rainier. They also have doubled down on the Yeti for decades. There's a character called the Beerbarian, and we invented a character called Candolph the Gold, which is obviously the wizard who rules over Mount Rainier. And so we've created this whole world for them. Actually, oh, I've got this open. I'll show you this. So this was when we really started having some fun. Every year we do holiday packaging for Rainier. It's called Jubilee. And the year I feel like we really started hitting our stride, just for them as a brand overall, and they were really hitting a good thing, was 2024. And this is just my favorite holiday thing we've worked on, because I did the illustrations and I'm a fantasy nerd and I love this wizard. So we did these illustrations of them with the Yeti, with the Beerbarian, which is one of their characters, a Beerbarian, and riding a wild Rainier. And then on the other side of all the packaging, it would have Candolph the Gold with his orb with a big red R in it, basically. So that showed up in packaging like this. And then on the cans, you could see it would show up just in chrome or in aluminum like this. And then we did a snowboard for it where you can see the front and back of the snowboard. We just had like one side had Candolph and the Yeti and Beerbarian, and then one side that's just Candolph. So I feel like this was when we were really hitting a good stride with them of like double down on the world building of Rainier, and it creates a world that's worth exploring. It gives us some of those mascot aspects where if I could slap Candolph on everything, I would, but you know, we gotta let the big red R do its thing. And I think the other thing that they were really good at doing is just the fact that it's the same beer you've always loved. They aren't trying anything crazy. The type of beer listed on the can is just beer. It just says beer on the bottom. We all know what that means. So it's like, it's just a good, cozy hug from a beer every time you crack it open. Like, you know exactly what to expect. So I really love working with them, and they just get it in a way that's honestly really surprising. So kudos to the team there. All right. So I'm probably missing a lot of other things I love about Rainier, but these are some of the real fun moments from it. It was actually really exciting when we started working with them, because they came to us and they weren't really sure exactly, you know, there was this new guard came in at Rainier and they weren't really sure where they should take it. And they were like considering like maybe it needs to be a big change up. Maybe we need to like go like there was like this was 7 years ago when maybe we started working with them. 6. And they weren't really sure, you know, that was still kind of like craft was really kind of dominating the conversation. Do we like do some things that call out to them? And we were just like, nope, your brand is the big red R. It's the world you're building. It's everything Mountain Fresh. It's just a big red R on a white can. That is your brand. And like you can own that and become like the dominant beer in the region. It's been great. So I think like, all right, we all love Rainier. So what are some things kind of that we can pull out of that? So here's just some overarching thoughts about all of this. You know, for the last few decades, you know, craft. Let me think about how I want to put this. For the last few decades, craft. Oh boy, I'm gonna get it out. Okay, craft beer. Craft beer has spent decades trying to become more novel and chasing novelty, which really worked for some time because, you know, there were decades before that where it was just like the same type of beer and it was only lagers existed. And so craft beer really did generate a lot of excitement in the beer category, and it really blew up. The problem was after decades of chasing new novel beers, chasing trends, trying to create different flavor trends, the crowd became exhausted. Like, it actually becomes, unless you're a really truly die-hard fan, it becomes really exhausting to chase a category that is just like constantly changing like that, where every time you go into your favorite brewery, they've got different beers that you've never had. Where's the one that you liked last time? There's all this kind of stuff that happens. And so that really created kind of a problem where the whole market just got exhausted. And then what happened quietly during that time was all these regional beers and domestics, and a lot of craft ones too, that just kind of like saw where the future was going. They spent all those decades just becoming more themselves, more authentic to what they actually cared about, and just even more focused on their niche. I think that was the thing that a lot of craft brands especially really lost sight of, was that it was them focusing on their niche that made them successful initially, and once they tried to go broad, it just watered their brand down and everyone lost sight of what they were doing. So Rainier Beer and many others like it weren't trying to become more relevant. They were just trying to become more themselves. And I think that's one of the biggest things to learn with what's happened in the whole beer industry and spirits industry in general, is the places that are sticking to their guns, defending their niche, narrowing down, creating a world that's worth exploring, as opposed to just spreading wide and creating more SKUs across different categories. They really just nail down in the one that they're good in. That's the places that seem to be kind of like building walls around their business and doing well. So, and the important thing about that is because, like, when you're a drinker and you like drinking Rainy or something like that, when that brand is becoming more and more itself, and it's becoming more steeped in this world that you enjoy, that brand is helping you become more of yourself as well. It helps you imbue yourself with that world more, and it helps you it becomes an aspirational brand then, even though it's simple. This is an American lager, and there are other American lagers like it technically, but this one is yours, and it is like an aspirational brand that you can kind of like live into. So I think that's kind of it. Like right now, just heritage, authenticity, whatever authenticity means, but that's maybe a whole other discussion. Like, heritage and authenticity are just crushing novelty and that premium craft messaging right now. And it probably won't be like that forever. I think these kind of categories go in cycles. There's been some greater consolidation in the beer category again, where AB and Bev, brands like that, have bought up a lot of small craft breweries. So like this whole cycle, I wouldn't be surprised if it happens again. So that's probably something for these brands that are like smaller and more focused to be mindful of. But right now, I don't think it's ever a bad idea to just double down on who you are. So, all right. That's some thoughts on beer and where it's going. I think that kind of hits a lot of the notes I wanted to make sure. See if let me look through my notes really fast. See if there's anything exciting that I wanted to make sure we hit on. Oh, I think that's it. There's probably, I mean, I could talk about beer and whatnot forever. I know, I'll just say some of the brands that we've worked with are working on things that I am very excited about, that I think help them become more themselves, and I think that's really good. I don't think it's bad to have some kind of innovation in your product line. I think it just really needs to be rooted in who you are and not chasing like, oh, we're a beer company, let's make like canned margaritas. I don't, it's just, there's no way you win at that game, because someone who's like really focused on that will end up beating you. Like, I think actually, I mean, I'm drinking this Athletic right now. I think the NA industry, like, Athletic became so quickly dominant that the NA industry is actually going to be uh, I think really difficult to break into, because I think there's at least from my perspective, it seems like the word athletic has almost become kind of like the Q-tip of the NA industry. So like you can go to a bar and ask for an athletic, and if they don't have athletic, the person's like, well, we've got this one. And I've seen that happen with on-premise, at bars a lot. And so that's actually one thing I didn't talk about, is that I think another challenging factor to this is on-premise sales have dropped a lot. That's like sales that actually happen at bars. And so people aren't going out as much. So when people aren't going out as much as they used to, they're just going to the store and buying things and returning to their old standards. That's like, I always talk about there's like a couple types of drinking and or food or anything like this. There's the like, what's your exploratory one? You're like, I've never had this. I'm gonna go out and try this. I'm excited. I'm chasing the novelty. But like, what's the one that's at home in your fridge? Like, what's the one that's just there for you all the time? Those are two very different decisions from a consumer perspective. And I think for years we had the like, we're going out, let's chase novelty, and now the zeitgeist is currently to be like, let's be at home, let's stick by our old standards. And so that's kind of like where I think a lot of that like regional focus and everything really nails it. But all right, did anyone in chat crack a cold one today? See, the nerdy also, the other really nerdy reason I'm drinking the Athletic today is because I'm gonna play some Marathon, the video game, at some point, and I need to be, I need to be sharp. Nathan Campfather says yes. Nathan, what are you drinking? Are you drinking a Tecate? Uh, all right. So I think that covers beer. We'll definitely come back to talk beer more often. It's a world I love working in. I think it's a world that really benefits from having like sharp positioning and sharp distinctions between it, because it's a consumer packaged good and it's really hard to compete in those spaces. So brand can be really important. And I mean, let's be honest, there's the thrill of designing something and doing brand work for something that shows up in your grocery store. That's maybe still to this day, after over 20 years of working in the industry, that's still maybe the coolest thing you can have. Oh, Nathan says he's drinking the Pelican. So for if anyone, he's drinking Pelican. So is Pelican beach beer a thing, or is that just, I wouldn't be surprised. Oh, here we go. Let me pull this up for everyone. This is what Nathan's drinking. Oh, okay. Life's a beach. Drink it in. I mean, yeah, I have some thoughts about this. That's a, I mean, Pelican is actually, I have no idea how Pelican's doing these days, but Pelican for a long time, they've had this packaging here, which, sorry, I'm going to zoom in kind of a goofy way because I don't want to jump to a random Fred Meyer page. Like, they've had this, that Pelican has shown up on everything for years. And, like, when they do that, great. That's good, consistent, but this one doesn't say Pelican anywhere. Survival of the chillest. Yeah, I mean, it's this is the kind of stuff where it's like, cool, I love that they're making it, but this is definitely obviously a beer that's just gonna like float them while they get onto like some whatever next thing they're gonna make, um but good on them. I mean, it's fun, it's got some good colors, but I don't blame you for drinking it, Nathan. I'd drink it. Nathan said it was on sale for a reason, probably. I mean, you're probably right. I mean, this is another craft brand. I don't know how they're doing these days either, like sales wise, but who cares? Like the Bowie stuff, incredible. Rubens also pretty good, but Bowie is just insanely consistent on everything. It's always about that circle with the Bowie in it. Their stuff looks great. So that's the way you do a nice craft beer that feels like it's been around for 100 years. Uh, all right. Thanks so much, everybody. That was great. That was You're Not the Audience this week. Next week, I haven't quite decided on what I want to tackle yet. Um, I've talked a lot about. I think last week I talked about uh millennial branding as a subject, like all those the giant explosion of brands that were doing things like purple mattresses and burrow sofas and stuff like that, where they were like taking old categories and reimagining them in new ways. Like Everlane, which Everlane just got bought by Shine. I always forget how to pronounce their name. So like we've officially maybe reached the end of like millennial branding, and so I've been thinking a lot about that. So uh maybe that'll be what comes up next week. But we'll see. I'll post it up like I normally do, share it on our Instagram. We officially have a new a little landing page on our website too for You're Not the Audience. So I'll start linking all these things around, and the show placeholder will go up probably on Monday or Tuesday, so you'll see what it is then. But that's it. All right. Uh, Happy Thursday, everybody. Thanks for joining, chat. This is great. Sorry I forced you all to look at Voodoo Ranger. I know it's a real affront on a graphic on a stream about where people are passionate about graphic design. But I promise I'll make it up next week. All right. See you all next week. Thanks a bunch. Another fun stream.